Hey guys, first and foremost, I just want to congratulate you all on an amazing week. I thoroughly enjoyed watching each and every one of your pieces. It was such a joy. Having said that, I do have to judge you all on some criteria, which you all know and are aware of, and I definitely took lots of notes. So I will be consulting those. But it was really, it was great overall, and you guys all have such a bright and wonderful future, and I can't wait to see more of what you guys do. So first off is Kirsten. I gave you 10 out of 15. I loved how you took a typical piece of music and made it interesting with the narration. I really did enjoy that. I thought it made it really kind of special. I would have liked to see you play with the energy levels a bit more. It felt as if the output stayed within the same frequency. The output from your performers just kind of felt very level, like kind of mid tempo, and I never saw a lot of ebb and flow. I didn't see many highs and lows from their energy level. That I would have liked to see that a little more. Some of my issue, I wasn't sure if it came from the choreography, the direction, or the performers themselves. For a love story, I couldn't find connection between your characters. As much as I enjoyed your structure and creativity, I found myself not super invested in the story and in the characters themselves. Um, overall it was a good effort though. I would say just in the future, try to direct your performers in a way that draws out the full qualities of what you envisioned. Really try to get them to bring that energy, to bring that connection, to bring everything that you saw in your mind. And that's going to come from how you coach them and how you direct them more than anything. But overall, it was quite good. I think a 10 out of 15 is not bad at all. So good job. Isabel, I gave you 14 out of 15. I thought it was brilliant, honestly. And the things that I deducted points from were not even bad per se. They weren't bad at all, actually. It could have gone either way in my mind. I gave you a near perfect score. I loved your narrative, your use of space, your timing, your effort, your creativity, and especially your innovation. The points I took away could be portrayed as strengths, actually. I wrestled in my head whether or not I should deduct or not, and finally I decided I should, as art is subjective and it is my personal feeling, given the parameters of the contest. I loved your narrative, but I felt no finale or resolution to the whole piece. As a piece of art, I can accept that not all narratives are resolute, and your lack of resolution left me thinking, which good art is meant to do. You know, it's supposed to make us feel a little bit uncomfortable. It's supposed to make us think. It's supposed to make us really kind of get outside of our own worldview. I mean, that's what art is meant to do. However, I felt this challenge was meant to be a complete narrative, start to finish. As it is a memory, it is something that we are looking back on, and it has been finalized and it has been resolute in that sense. So I gave you half a point there. I deducted another half a point as skating is generally viewed as a live medium, and I feel this would not have been as powerful or interesting if viewed live. It was an incredible piece of visual art, don't get me wrong, like amazing, and this could very well be, given the state we're in, the future of figure skating, and I think that is absolutely incredible. So please don't take this as a negative. This was just my initial gut feeling, and if I was watching this piece live, how I would have perceived it. But you know, this piece, as I said, it was a stunning piece of visual art, but and it would have fit in an exhibition in a museum so well. I could see myself being at a museum and watching it on a giant screen, and really kind of getting into the world that you created. But if I were to watch this in person, I don't think it would have worked as well. I don't think I would have enjoyed it as much. I think your work is transcendent, and I struggled with my judgment because your weakness in this environment are truly the strengths of your work. So as I said, it was a stunning piece. It really was visual art, and I really loved it. I was just trying to imagine myself sitting in an audience and watching it from a distance, and I don't think it would have read quite the same. So that was really it. Otherwise, stunning. Absolutely stunning. Keep it up. Next on to Brooke. Brooke, I gave you 10.5. I loved your music choice and narration. I felt the beginning you had a great use of diverse energies, but I did feel that kind of quickly dwindled and faded into kind of a singular output. From like the very first visuals, I was really feeling your performer, and I was feeling her kind of emotion and her energy as it was ebbing and flowing. But I really did feel that within a few, like 30 seconds or so, it kind of went downhill a little bit. I didn't feel the movement was super innovative or outside of the box, but having said that, I did enjoy it, and I would have watched more for sure. I as soon as it ended, I was like, oh, I'd like to watch that again. I'm not sure if it was your performer, your choreography, or your direction, the direction of your performer, but I felt like the majority of the movement came from the extremities. A lot of it just kind of came from the arms or the legs themselves, very separate from the core and from the torso and the body. So it kind of starts to look like a doll a little bit, if that makes sense, like a Barbie, how a Barbie's arm moves like very independently of its body. I would have loved to see more use of the body, or at least see the movement of the arms and legs initiated from the torso. So if you have an arm movement, make sure that it comes from the chest or the back or the core itself, so that we have a little bit more reach, we have a little bit more energy, we have just a little bit more depth of movement from that sense. That would have just really made the choreography that you had stand out, or rise up a little bit more and stand out a little bit more. When you do this, when you use the movement from the center a little bit more, it creates a wider kinetic reach and a drastic change in energy. If you can achieve that, I think it will make a huge impact overall with your choreography, with your movement, with your performers. So if you can start to get your performers to really move from the center and not just from the arms and the hands, or the legs and the knees, if that makes sense, I think that will make a really, really big difference in the future. Otherwise, I did enjoy it quite a lot, so good job. Next is Steven. Steven, I gave you 13 out of 15. I want to start with the negative, which is not entirely negative. I didn't feel the choreography was really that innovative or really out of the box. It felt like movements that I've seen before quite often. However, having said that, that doesn't mean it wasn't good. Good choreography doesn't always have to be the most innovative or the most different or the most new. Good choreography is taking movements and making them express a certain emotion or a certain story or a certain style. So even though it wasn't like anything that anything that I haven't seen before, it was still very good, if that makes sense. So even though they weren't unique, the movements that you did use were incredibly effective, and they told your story perfectly. Which I really wanted to express, that the movements that you did use and the way that you choreographed the piece from start to end, it really did express your story, and it really did express your idea, and I thought that was really great. I loved your restraint of space. I thought that it really exemplified what you were trying to say with your piece. Anxiety causes us to withdraw and to confine within ourselves. Keeping your performance nearly within the center circle, I thought, demonstrated that fear and that discomfort for everything that is within and beyond the self. You beautifully demonstrated your narrative by confining it in that manner. So that was a huge check for me, and that's why I gave you the score I did. So congratulations, good job. Adrian is next. Adrian, I gave you 13 and a half. First and foremost, let me express genuinely how sorry I am to hear of your experience and your diagnosis. It's heartbreaking. And since I don't know you, I genuinely hope you are okay and that you are well, and in remission, or having already beat or fought your diagnosis. That is absolutely heartbreaking, and I'm so sorry to hear that you had to go through that, or have to go through that. But such hardships and journey, they give us experience, and they give us a voice to create and express from a very specific point of view, and I think you did that beautifully. I love your song choice. It's a personal favorite of mine. So, no bias here, but I did really enjoy it. I felt the edit for the phone ringing was off, like with the phrasing of the music and where it came, it was a little harsh and a little off-putting. But knowing what that call was, and the interruption of your life that caused, knowing the interruption of your life and what that was as well, reflected in the discomfort of the edit, if that makes sense. So even though I didn't really like how you chose to edit the music, I can understand from an artistic standpoint how that kind of the disruption of the music kind of echoes the disruption of your life, and it, you can never really expect when something like that is going to happen or is going to come, and is going to really put kind of destroy the flow of your life as you knew it at the time. So I can see the parallel there. Whether it was on purpose or by accident, it was a good choice. I thought this was a very clear piece. It took us on your emotional journey through the processing of your diagnosis and of this news. I wasn't sure, however, if the use of space was a deliberate constraint or if it was a choreographic error. I really couldn't tell. I would have loved to have seen just a little more clarity there. If you're going to use a constrained and a confined space, make sure that it is very purposeful and really helps to tell your narrative, if that makes sense. Because I wasn't sure if it was just a lack of use of space or if it was really like a conscious choice. So I would have loved to see that just a little more clear. There were some really gorgeous moments. There were some really gorgeous choreographic moments that I really loved. My favorite being when your performer, after she got the phone call, there was a moment where she was walking so lightly over her toes, and then she fully dropped her body weight to the ice. She just did that with such abandon that it really caught me off guard, and it was just so stunning the way that it was choreographed and the way that it was executed. It was like that one moment really just lifted the piece for me, and I loved it. And then you used it later, and you used it very well, to a different degree. So just seeing the contrast of those energies and those dynamic qualities was really interesting, and I thought it was really stunning. So good job. And finally, we have Julia. So Julia, I gave you 11 out of 15. So it's funny and slightly unfortunate for two parties, that we had two choreographers choose two of the same spoken word pieces. You did choose two different musical pieces to use them over, but unfortunately we got yours second, so it was less impactful. So that was just kind of an unfortunate timing. That's not something that you can control, obviously. but as a viewer, watching it in sequence, hearing your piece after the other, and hearing the same narration and the same spoken word is it loses a little bit of impact because we already heard it, if that makes sense. And that's not something you can control. So I didn't take points off for that. Please don't misunderstand me. Like, there were no points taken off for that, but it was just an unfortunate circumstance. It is a great narrative though, and you guys both use them in very different ways to tell very different stories with very different emotion, and I really did appreciate that. The first was a little more literal, and then yours being a little more abstract. I did enjoy that you chose the less literal form. However, I did have trouble following your narrative a little bit. You can have an abstract narrative and you can still kind of follow along with what the idea was, but I didn't fully grasp what you were trying to say. As a piece of choreography, though, I thoroughly enjoyed it. But being a challenge specifically about a story, I felt it did detract from the challenge of this week's rules. I did enjoy, however, your use of space within the ring and kinetically within the body. I really enjoyed how your performer used his body and used it within the space. And I really did enjoy his control and his lack of control with his body. The way that he used that balance and that control with also letting go and collapsing and using his suspension and drop. I thought it was very well done. I also loved I loved your use of freestyle elements as choreographic elements. This is really hard to accomplish. And I felt that you and your performer did it perfectly. However, I didn't really enjoy your music edit or the fact that the video ended as the music continued. In some cases, it can be an artistic choice and it can be very well done. I did not feel like this was as much of an artistic choice and more that you weren't sure how to conclude your narrative or your story. So you kind of just chopped it off and let the music play on until you felt that it reached a conclusion. So it did feel less of like an artistic or a choreographic choice and more of just like you didn't know what to do. So there's that. I felt it was a little messy from your videography to your music editing. Like all of the cuts and the splices didn't quite flow as well as I would have liked to have seen. But I felt like your movement, your direction, your energy, your quality, and the use of jumps and spins as choreographic highlights rather than flashy elements. I felt that really saved you this week. So moving forward, I'd like to see you push a more clear, cohesive, and complete vision. Otherwise, I really did enjoy. I enjoyed your movement and I enjoyed your structure outside of the narrative and the story. So keep up the good work. So thank you guys all so much for your love, for your passion, and for sharing and putting yourselves out there in such a way for us to enjoy and watch as well as judge yourselves, basically. Thank you for sharing yourselves with us. Thanks for showing us who you are without words. Thank you for putting in the time and putting in the energy, and thank you for choosing to do this and take skating in such a beautiful and wonderful direction. You all did such a wonderful job, and keep practicing your art and keep practicing your craft and keep doing exactly what you're doing, because you all were so enjoyable and so wonderful. So thank you again for all of that.